Hopefully it's going to stay working.
We could explain how Honda's intelligent self-charging hybrid system improves fuel consumption when compared to petrol grades. Or we could show how it performs.
Yeah. Always a potato grade.
It's a Honda hybrid.
Discover
Come on, hop
thousands of
up.
creative
I'm trying to do something. Come on.
and feel the love, honey. So, what are you waiting?
Approached her, and she would let.
The public basically has been totally lied to. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States, well hidden from the American public.
Deep beneath the surface of our everyday world, terrifying secrets are being held. I'm Josh Pinocchio. This is what lurks beneath. You won't want to miss this one. On a July afternoon,
Hey,
in
Guy. Hi, boss.
1987,
Good to see you
a
guys.
21-year-old woman named Krista Tilton was going about her
Hey,
day
Bill. Good to see you, mate.
when she suddenly felt dizzy and lightheaded. She sat down, figuring she just needed a moment to collect herself, but the next thing she knew, she was waking up, and it was dark outside. She looked at a clock and was horrified to see that 3 full hours had passed, and she had no memory of what happened in that time. Initially, Krista tried to rationalize the experience. She told herself she must have been exhausted and, simply just fainted, sleeping through the afternoon. But in the days that followed, she began having these horrific nightmares. In them, she would see strange, distorted figures and feel this overwhelming sense of dread come over her. But when she'd wake up, the specific details of the dreams would simply vanish, leaving only terror behind. She became convinced that these nightmares were not just bad dreams, but they were echoes of whatever had happened during her 3 hours of lost time. Now, this conviction sent her on a desperate search for answers, and that's when she began.
Lars, that's why I picked this show, because he mentioned, what's that guy's name? Phil Snyder. That's why I played this, because he's pretty credible. Not that he's alive.
Began researching cases of missing time and memory loss. And the more she read, the more she found stories that sounded disturbingly similar to her own. These are stories that often ended with one terrifying explanation: alien abduction. Unsure of what else to do, and on the advice of a local ufologist that she had contacted, she decided to undergo regressive hypnosis, hoping to unlock the memories that were tormenting her from just beyond her consciousness. And as she lay in a reclined chair in a quiet room, the hypnotist's voice guided her back to that July afternoon. And as she went deeper and deeper into a trance, the wall in her mind that had been blocking her memory suddenly crumbled, and a flood of incredibly vivid and detailed images washed over her. And the first thing she remembered was that she hadn't just fainted. Right before she lost consciousness, 2 small humanoid creatures had approached her, grabbed her by the arms, and everything had gone dark. Her next memory was of being on a cold metal table inside what she knew was a ship. Another humanoid, taller than the others, approached her, and she would later come to call this being her guide. He handed her a glass filled with this strange liquid and told her to drink. Now, as soon as she did, an incredible energy surged through her body. She felt alert, cheerful, and unafraid. And after she finished the drink, the guide led her off the ship, not back to where she had been taken, but to a dark, kind of deserted landscape under a night sky. In the distance, she could see a faint light emanating from a small hill, coming from what looked like the entrance to a cave. And so as they walked toward it, she saw a man standing near the entrance. And she could tell that he was human, or at least looked like a human, and was dressed in a red military-style jumpsuit, holding an automatic weapon. This is getting weird, right? The guide greeted the man as if they were colleagues, and Krista noticed a strange patch on the man's uniform. And so as they entered the cave, it opened up into a tunnel that kind of sloped deep into the earth. It was clear they were going directly under the mountain. Inside, they were met by another guard in a red jumpsuit. And then Krista saw something that really rattled her mind because it made no sense. A modern computerized checkpoint with cameras on either side. To her left, a small transit vehicle was parked in a large grove cut into the rock, and to her right was a long, sterile corridor that stretched into the distance, lined with office doors. It was evident they were in some kind of massive underground facility. So Krista and her guide boarded the transit car, which then sped them through the complex, and
You're
she starts
welcome,
asking
Ross.
her guide where are they going, but he only replied that he had to show her some things that she needed to know for future use. They had just entered the first level of the institution, and when she asked what kind of institution it was, he didn't answer. Now, eventually, the car stopped and they got out on what the guide called level 2. And it was here that she saw what looked like a normal office building, with ordinary people and business attire, just kind of walking back and forth, ignoring her. But then they walked past a huge factory-like room, and inside she saw a small saucer-shaped craft being worked on by several of the classic gray aliens with large heads and, the black almond-shaped eyes. Just like the humans in the
Wow.
offices, the Greys paid no attention to her, acting as if she had every right to be there. The guide then led her to another elevator, and they descended to level 5. Now, the moment the doors opened, she was immediately hit with this sickening sweet smell that she recognized from her time as a young nurse's aide: formaldehyde. The air was so thick with it. I mean, it was just pungent. And the guide assured her everything was fine, but she was starting to get really fearful. And in fact, the fear was becoming so overwhelming, it was now overriding the effects of the drink that she had earlier. But they continued. They walked down a corridor and stopped in front of a large room. And peeking inside, she saw rows of huge 4-foot-tall metal tanks, all connected by tubes and wires to a complex computer system. A humming sound filled the air, and she could see something was moving inside the vats, causing the liquid to
Wow,
ripple.
California
And she started
again.
to walk closer to see what was in them, but the guide grabbed her arm forcefully, telling her she didn't need to see the contents, that it would only complicate matters. He then dragged her down the hall into a large laboratory filled with medical equipment that she'd never seen, and a small gray alien stood at a counter, its back to her, preparing what looked like surgical instruments. You heard the clinking sound of metal on metal, and it just made her even more fearful. Now, the guide told her to sit on an examination table in the middle of the room. And as she did, a human doctor in a lab coat entered, greeted the guide, and then looked over at her. And the guide smiled and told her he would wait outside, that this would only take a few moments. And this is when Krista began to cry. The gray alien glanced at her, then turned back to its work, unamused, and the doctor called for assistance. And another gray entered the room, and the next thing she remembered, she was lying on the table, feeling very sleepy. And as the doctor and the two grays examined her, she felt this sudden stabbing pain in her abdomen, and she screamed. Now, the human doctor quickly rubbed a cold substance on her stomach, and the pain immediately subsided. She begged them to let her go, but they just continued to work on her methodically. Well, when they were finished, she was told to get dressed in a small adjoining room, and she noticed there was blood between her legs, but she was too numb with shock to process it. So she changed back into her clothes and walked out to find her guide talking quietly with the doctor. And as you can imagine, she felt completely helpless, like a guinea pig in an experiment. And as they left the lab, the guide told her the procedure had been necessary and that she would forget everything. So as they walked back to the transit car, she asked him again what this place was. Like, where am I? What's going on? He simply said it was a very important facility and that she would be returning here over the next few years. Now, before they left, the guide took her to one last area, and there is where she saw the most terrifying sight of all. Lined up against a wall were several large,
Paul Begley with a guitar.
transparent-like tubes, and inside each tube was a person standing motionless, their eyes wide open. Now, she couldn't tell if they were
Hi, yeah,
alive
boy,
or
good to see
dead. They
ya.
just stood there like wax figures in the state of suspended animation. But in other chambers, she saw animals in cages, like the humans, but also frozen in time. and she pressed her hand against the glass, just trying to get a reaction, but there was nothing. Her guide took her back to the transit car, back up to the surface, and back onto the ship. And the next thing she knew, she was waking up in her home 3 hours later with no memory of what had just happened. Well, it would turn out that according to Krista, this was just her first trip to the secret underground base. Over the years, she claimed that she was abducted many more times. She came to believe the facility was the infamous Dulce base in New Mexico, a supposed joint human-alien underground complex at the center of countless dark secrets. She claimed she was used to birth hybrid children and that she herself was part alien. It gets darker because this wasn't the only base that she was taken to. In fact, Krista said this: I am aware of many, many, many underground structures or bases that are used for different purposes. Most of the underground bases are used for secret or other purposes involving the government, which conduct certain types of tests underground. And then there are bases, one in particular north of Tucson, Arizona, where I am almost sure that I was taken. It passes under the code or real name Evergreen Aviation. They have all the flying objects there, and in 10 years of research, I have found that this institution is founded or supported by the CIA. But even more chilling is that Krista is just one of many who've undergone this kind of therapy and relived absolute terror. In the depths of secret government labs, rumors swirl about formulas that push human limits. Lucky for us, the only classified recipe you need has already leaked, straight from Trade Coffee. I'm a year-round cold brew fiend, and Trade is now my go-to. In fact, they're the #1 coffee destination in the U.S. for hot and cold drinkers, partnering with 15 roasters to create a special cold brew collection. Beans arrive freshly roasted, ground exactly for cold brew, plus the simple gear that makes brewing as easy as pouring water in a pitcher overnight. The result? Smooth, cafe-quality cold brew that costs way less than a $6 coffee shop run and smells like you just walked into a roastery and not a government lab. For a limited time, Trade is getting 50% off a month of cold brew. That's around 60 cups of cold brew for 50% off when you go to drinktrade.com/look.
Aliens in them. You know, when you're a child, you just think everyone is, you do, you know, everyone's life is kind of like your life, you know, internally, externally. If you've got parents that drink, you think everyone's got parents that drink, and that's perfectly normal, right? And I just thought everybody had, you know, dreams of these little people vaporizing through the, you know, through the wall, communicating with you, you know, the telepathic thing, you know, being in a white room on a stretcher with, you know, them doing medical exams on you. I just thought that they were really vivid dreams, and that was it until well, the real kicker came in 1987 when I saw the book Communion. It had just come out, and you know how in the really big bookstores in the malls, when a new book comes out, they used to have a big display like right out front, you know, 50 books would be there. And I just happened to be walking by, and I turned and I saw that face, and I knew her. Like, I knew her instantly. It was instant recognition. And I also instantly had to find the nearest bathroom. And I ran in the stall, just started throwing up, like, violently. And I was not sick before that point. Like, the seeing that face was so disturbing to me, and that I knew who she was. A lot of people, I discovered later, I mean, I've heard throughout the years, a lot of people had a very similar reaction. After I saw that book cover, anytime I would try to remember like how I knew her, I would just get these violent headaches, and which I had never had a problem with before. So that was odd. The only way I could get rid of them was just to go to sleep. And if I'd go to sleep, I'd wake up and it would be gone. I finally called Mutual UFO Network, and Walt Andrus was the president at the time. I said, look, this is what's happening, and what do you think? And he said, well, I think, you know, would you be interested in going under, you know, regressive hypnosis? And I said, I would, but I don't know anybody, and I don't want to be led. I really just want to find out what's there. And so, but it took me 6 months to get up the courage to go do the regression, because I was really kind of terrified what I was going to uncover. The whole thing started, the regressionist took me back to the very first time I had an encounter with these beings. I was standing in my bedroom, in my crib, holding onto the rails, and this little man just materialized through the wall, big-headed. I mean, I even drew a picture of him after I came out of the regression. Large, kind of a large cranium, small eyes, not the big black almond-shaped
Round
upturned
ones.
eyes. This was just a very small, frail man with a large cranium, and he was just a friend. He was just a friend. After I did the hypnosis, I asked
Hi,
my mom, I
Johnny.
said, Mom, did I ever have an invisible friend? And she goes, oh yeah, you and your older brother both had an invisible friend. She goes, sometimes you guys are so adamant I have to set a place at the table for him. Now, after I did the regression, the headache stopped, and we just kind of scraped the surface of the times that I'd been taken. So I can't talk. The only person in my family I can talk to about that is my sister, because she shared the same bedroom with me.
Now, if you see mine from around the world, come on, will you give me a heads up, please?
She had some memories.
Looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about that 8.8 earthquake yesterday.
The way these things would pop in the room. But now I have 3 children. One of my biggest fears as a parent was that they were going to also disturb my kids, and they did. I think this was 95 or 96. My son came walking into the kitchen. I think I was making breakfast, and he came walking into the kitchen and a very strange look on his face. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, come to my room. So I walked down the hall with him and got into his room, and he closed the door and he sat down on his bed and he pulled his boxers down, and he had a triangular shaped puncture mark in his groin. Wow. I don't know if you've ever seen what a smallpox shot looks like.
Yeah.
When we were kids, we got these in our arm. I guess it was the device was round and it had needles, like needles that were in a circle, and it was punctures. So my son had a perfect triangle with three puncture marks on his groin, and he said, Mom, what is that? And I of course I immediately thought, oh crap, now they're taking samples and doing stuff.
Okay, it'll cost me, I'll buy his record and send it to you. How about that?
With my kids, still. My daughter walked in, she's 2 years older than he is, and she goes, Nathan showed her, and she left the room and went to her room, and about 10 seconds later we heard her scream, and she had the same puncture mark on her groin, just in a different place.
Krista Tilton wasn't the only one to bear witness to Dulce Base either. A special U.S. government geologist and engineer named Phil Schneider, who was involved in the construction of deep underground military bases, or DUMBs, said this.
1947 is what the public has been told. Something crashed in the backyard in New Mexico, a place called Roswell, New Mexico. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years, and they first saw their glimpse of what was going on as early as 1909 in the American Southwest. All information dealing with alien or alien reproduced technology well hidden from the American public. Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,400.
I think that's up to 800 now. I think there's 800 bases, underground bases in the US. I'm pretty sure that's right.
77 of them worldwide. The magneto-leviton trains that connect all the deep underground military bases. The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases.
To make matters stranger, even local news had picked up on some of the strange events happening in and around the area.
They threw down a ladder from that spaceship, and then 2 small people started climbing down. It was huge. I just saw the bottom of it. It was like flat, like this, down this way, the waist down. It's a goat. It has a tail, but up here it's a man.
Many of our neighbors.
Wow. The bottom of it's a ghost. That's Pan. It's a goat. Wow. Let's see that again.
And around the area.
They threw down a ladder from that spaceship, and then 2 small people started climbing down. It was huge. I just saw the bottom of it. It was like flat, like this, down this way, the waist down. It's a goat. It has a tail, but up here it's a man.
Many of our neighbors claim
That's Pan, half goat, half man.
Similar strange sightings. Some people in town say the base is run by aliens working with our federal government to conduct mind control and genetic experiments.
Unfortunately, where she was taken to, why she was chosen, or any of the real specifics, well, that remains a mystery. On the night of November 17th, 1977, a 50-year-old miner named Mario Cueto sat on the cold sand of Yanurina Beach in Peru, clutching his stomach. The pain from his chronic ulcers was particularly bad tonight, but he wasn't about to let it ruin his fishing trip. He, along with his son and three of his closest friends, fellow miners named Francisco, Ricardo, and Benjamin, had been planning this trip for weeks. They were all hard workers, and a night out fishing under the stars was their way of unwinding. They had driven hours to get to this remote stretch of coastline in Arequipa, a place so isolated it felt like they were the only people on Earth. The sky was clear, and the only sounds were the rhythmic crashes of waves and the quiet chatter of the friends as they cast their lines into the water. Around 1:30 or so in the morning, as Mario was trying to ignore another sharp pain in his gut, Ricardo suddenly stopped talking mid-sentence, and he pointed up at the sky. The other men, of course, followed his gaze, and there, hanging silently above the ocean, were three metallic saucer-shaped objects. They weren't moving, but they were rotating slowly, ringed with brilliant, colorful lights that pulsed in shades of yellow.
Yeah, Shawnee, I seen that about Pelosi. She's in trouble too. The whole lot of them are going to jail. As it stands, it looks like they're all going to jail.
And red. The five fishermen stood frozen, their lines forgotten in the water, and Francisco, who was an avid photographer, instinctively reached for his camera bag before remembering, with a curse, that he'd left it at home. Of course, no one said a word. They just stared, trying to process what it was they were seeing, and Mario, ever the instigator, broke the silence. He grabbed his flashlight, aimed it up at the objects, and flicked it on and off, just trying to get its attention. Instantly, the spinning of the saucer stopped, and the objects themselves became stationary. But the lights around their edges continued to rotate, casting this strange, silent disco almost across the ocean. Then, slowly and in perfect unison, the three crafts began to descend. They didn't fall, they actually moved
Yeah, I
with a
remember
very
that.
controlled, deliberate purpose. And
Diane, she didn't have a wig on, and she really had old lady's hair. She wears a wig.
during the ocean without so much as a splash. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, leaving only the five stunned men on the shore. Now Ricardo finally broke the silence, whispering to his friends, "Did you guys just see that?" Now, he was trying to sound braver than ever and replied without hesitation that they were flying saucers. Now, for a while, they were all too shaken to do much of anything. They decided to pack up their gear and move to a different spot a little further down the beach, where they hoped that their luck would be better. So they set up their things, and one by one, they succumbed to their fatigue, collapsing onto the sand and falling into this deep sleep. Now, it was Benjamin who woke up first, just as the sky was beginning to lighten. But it wasn't the dawn that had woken him. It was a strange, silvery light reflecting off the wet sand. And so he sat up, rubbing his eyes, and then he scrambled over to his friends.
Shawnee, they're horrible people. I get on sites on Facebook and get stuck into them. Now, I've got to say, the Catholics are really horrible people.
Shaking them awake.
They think you can't get to Jesus without the Catholic Church. They really think that.
And he pointed down the beach, asking what the strange object was, wondering aloud if the army had somehow arrived on this desolate beach. About 50 or so meters away, sitting right at the edge of the water, was a large tank-like object. It was about 2 meters high and 4 meters long, made of a seamless, shimmering silver metal. It had no wheels, no visible seams, no markings of any kind. It just sat there, reflecting the pre-dawn light in a way that almost kind of made it glow. Standing chest deep in the violent surf nearby were three distinct figures. Now, initially, these fishermen thought that they were just men, as weird as this was, but as they looked and stared, they realized nothing about this was ordinary. The figures in the water were giants, impossibly tall, and dressed head to toe in the same shiny silver material as the craft. They wore boots, gloves, and helmets that completely obscured their faces. Ricardo would later recall that they couldn't see their faces, that everything was silver, and that they moved with this robotic gait. Now, the figures were standing in waves that crashed against their chests with enough force to knock a normal man off his feet, but they just stood there, holding their ground, motionless and unaffected. Bizarrely, they seemed to be fishing. They would raise their arms in a casting motion, and the men on the beach could hear a faint whistling sound.
Too bad the hair didn't catch fire.
You know, like a line cutting through the air, but the figures held no rods or no lines or any equipment. And then one of the figures took a step out of the water and onto the sand. As its silver boot touched the shore, the sand around it seemed to hiss and emit a smoke as if it were boiling. The fishermen, of course, were terrified, all except for one. Mario Cueto, despite the searing pain in his stomach, was consumed by this defiant curiosity. While his friends huddled together, he stood up, and Francisco tried to warn him, grabbing his arm, telling him it was dangerous, that this thing could be from another planet. Doesn't this sound like the plot from like a 1950s or 60s sci-fi movie? Crazy, right? But in defiance, Mario shook him off. He was going to get a closer look at that craft, and he began walking slowly, deliberately down the beach toward the silver tank. And as he got closer, one of the giant figures in the water turned its head toward him. It didn't speak, but it slowly shook its head from side to side, a clear, unmistakable warning not to come any closer. And you know, Mario hesitated for a second and then kept walking. He was only a few meters from the craft when he saw a small window on its side, and he crept up to it and peered inside, and there he saw a fourth silver-clad figure sitting at a small table. It was holding what looked like a flat, melon-colored tortilla and was eating it. Now, as Mario watched, the figure tore off a piece and casually tossed it toward a small opening near the window. The scrap fell out onto the sand, and without thinking, he bent down, picked up the strange, warm piece of food, and put it in his mouth. The effect was immediate and violent. It buckled his knees, and he fell to the sand, vomiting uncontrollably. He stumbled back to his friend.
I've never heard this side of UFOs before, where they give you potions. It's pretty interesting.
Pale and shaking, unable to explain what had just happened. And then the strangest thing of all occurred. As his friends gathered around him, this wave of exhaustion washed over all five of them simultaneously. This wasn't natural tiredness. It was this heavy, irresistible force. Now, as Ricardo would later describe it, they simply conked out. And when they awoke hours later, the sun was high in the sky, the silver craft was gone, and the giant figures were gone. They scrambled to their feet and rushed to the shoreline, desperately searching for any sign of what had happened. But of course, there was nothing. It was as if the entire encounter had been nothing more than a shared nightmare. Fearing ridicule, they kept their story to themselves for decades. They went back to their lives, to their work in the mines, trying to forget the impossible morning on that beach. But for Mario, something changed. Because as the months went by, he noticed that chronic, agonizing pain from his stomach ulcers, a condition that had plagued him for years at this point, was fading away. And in fact, within 6 months, it was gone entirely. And when he went to his doctors, as you can imagine, they were baffled. They ran tests, but they could find no medical explanation. The ulcers that had been a constant source of misery in his life had completely healed. While you and I have tons of questions about this man's account, it's changed Mario's life forever. South America is full of strange UFO and humanoid accounts, just like the one I shared with you. And there's just so many, it makes us wonder what's going on down there and what's so special about South America that make it so concentrated for things like this.
The Peruvian government has not controlled it, which is why.
When you think about it, Clinton and all them, they could be done for RICO laws. And you get 20, 30 years if you get done for RICO.
You can go there and you can still see things. They used to have stuff here.
Because with the RICO laws, they can go into her finances, and if she can't justify where she got the money, they confiscate it. That's how it works here anyway.
In some of the museums, it's all with for Native American Grave Protection and Repatriation Act. You know, you can't find anything. I mean, it's just it's a controlled narrative.
What makes this 1977 case even more interesting is the similarities it has to another very famous UFO case that involves food.
In the 1960s, I think it was April 18th, 1961. Joe is sitting in his kitchen, really well regarded by the community. You know, he was Santa Claus for the community some. He was, you know, an active member in the community. And he was sitting at his kitchen table and he was finishing up, you know, breakfast or a late breakfast or an early lunch, something like that. And he hears this sound. It's like the sound of wet pavement, tires moving across wet pavement. And he looks outside and he thinks that, like, there's something settling down into his yard, and he thinks at first, like, oh no, the roof of my house has come off. But as he's looking at it, he sees that it looks like two bowls set on top of each other, and it's, you know, shiny and chrome. But he rushes outside, and this sort of, the way he describes it is kind of like a car trunk opening. This portal on the UFO opens up, and he sees a couple of men inside, and they're not aliens. They do appear to be men. He said that, I think Joe Simonson himself said that they looked like dark-skinned Italians, I think is what he said. You know, consider the time, consider the place, I guess. One of them is sort of gesturing at him. And he infers, and it's kind of interesting, you look at some of Joe Simonson's interviews, and he looks a little bit haunted at this point, because he said that he looked in the entity's eyes, and this person's eyes really seemed to sort of look into his soul. But he gathered in his simple way that these beings must want water. And they handed him this jug that he says was the most beautiful piece of, you know, most beautiful container he'd ever seen. He'd never seen anything on Earth at all that looked as, you know, ornate and captivating. And so he, you know, opens the door and he goes down to the basement, and he has a pump down there. He pumps up some water and he brings it back. And he's sort of leaning up to hand this jug of fresh water up to one of these UFO occupants. And he notices that another one of these beings is working on this flameless griddle, is what he described it in the back, because you can see inside the craft. And there's, I think, a couple of little panels and stuff, but most of it looks like this black raw iron. And on this one flat surface, that one of the UFO occupants is flipping these sort of discs, and he can't really figure out what they are. But he makes this motion like, "Oh, are you going to eat? Can we eat? Are you going to eat?" The UFO occupant decides that this means that Joe is hungry. So he hands these things over to Joe. I can't remember exactly how many it is, because you read conflicting reports. 3 is kind of the general number. 1 ended up in the hands of J. Allen Hynek, who was doing a lot of research at the time. One was shipped away for analysis, and Joe kept one. Joe sees that they look like these little cookies or pancakes, and there's still pictures you can find online, and there's actually one of these is still on display outside a cafeteria at a military base, if you can believe it. But it looks like this sort of like loose lattice work of you know.
I never even thought that the ETs might need to eat. I didn't know that was a case.
Grain product. And he tastes one, and he says that they taste horrible. They taste like cardboard. Joe even said, you know, the beings were rather short. They were like 4 feet tall or so. And he said, no wonder they don't get so big if they're eating that for their meals. Joe takes a bite, and that's kind of the end of the interaction. Door on the side of the craft closes, and the UFO takes off into the sky. Joe suffered a lot for this. He came forward. It's an absolutely absurd story. Everybody knows that it's absurd, you know, especially the crowd of modern folks who like to talk about sinister alien agendas and hybridization and things like that. They have no time for something like the Joe Simonson story, even though he had physical evidence from his encounter.
We'll teach him how to pee, play, and behave right at Pet Farm Puppy School.
Some of us still not comparing car insurance as premiums rise.
You save on car wash, why not save bucket loads comparing car insurance deals?
It pays to compare.
Simple.
Running empty's a bit of a pain. At Origin,
there was never any deception detected on Joe's part. And these pancakes or cookies, whatever you want to call them, they're usually called pancakes. This is the UFO pancake story. Were analyzed, and the analysis revealed that they were completely made of terrestrial ingredients, primarily buckwheat, but with a noticeable lack of salt, which is interesting because if you ever cooked, you know that even, you know, some rudimentary pastries and things that you make will require salt, even if you don't taste it. There's a lot of back and forth, and he's interviewed numerous times, and there's a bit of a media frenzy. He passed away eventually and is still buried up there in Eagle River. Why I find that story interesting is because it's high strangeness. It's so goofy. Another reason is because of my interest in fairy folklore. Jacques Vallée in 1969 wrote this work that's been really sort of the cornerstone for a lot of the stuff that I do. And it was called Passport to Magonia. Other people had sort of briefly or furtively drawn this comparison in the past, but Vallée really did a great job of showing the similarities between some of these older ideas surrounding spirits, and in particular, fairies, the fae folk, and the modern UFO contact experience. And one of the things that Vallée noted was that there's a lot of fairy lore surrounding buckwheat, including, fairies sort of dispensing or rationing buckwheat grain to people in certain parts of his native France. But also, fairies always had an aversion to salt. That was one of the ways to keep the fairies at bay, was to put out salt. And, that's something you'll hear in other occult practices too, is that the way you keep out spirits and demons and things like that in general is to use salt. So Vallée said, oh, look, we got buckwheat, but we got buckwheat, we've got a lack of salt. It sounds kind of like a fairy story, because again, Simonton mentioned that these entities had dark skin, and a lot of these fairy stories, including the modern ones, will talk about the fairies sort of having darker skin and a sort of wizened complexion, sort of wrinkled and stuff. And there's an island off the coast of Germany where local folklore holds that a race of dwarves, referred to as pardon my pronunciation, the Unerbansk or Unerbanski, were very fond of helping out farmers. And Joe Simonton is a farmer. And these dwarves on this particular island helped out farmers who were working in the field by bringing them fresh water and pancakes. And that to me is, whenever you find a little tidbit like that, that's when my alarm bells really start going off, because I don't think Joe Simonton was reading a book of German folklore. The Joe Simonton story has always been a favorite of mine. And
I've never heard of him, John Simonton.
Might see it on What Lurks Beneath soon.
As bizarre as these accounts are, there are certainly an overwhelming amount of experiencers. It, folks, remains a mystery. On a cold February night in 2004, a teenager named Ben and his two friends, Michael and Chris, were sitting around his garage in Anchorage, Alaska, bored out of their minds. It was late, and outside, the world was already buried under a thick, fresh blanket of snow that had fallen a few days earlier. Mike turned to the others and just said, "You guys want to go for a ride?" He was nodding toward their 3 snow machines parked in the corner. Now, technically, riding snow machines within the Anchorage city limits was illegal, but just a little ways north of Ben's house were miles of incredible trails that, snaked and winded through the woods and up near the power line clearings east of Potter Marsh. It was a place they knew well, and so a few minutes later, the 3 friends were roaring down the street. They rode for about a quarter mile before Ben, who was in the lead, veered off the road and onto a trailhead, plunging them into the deep woods. Now here, the only light came from the powerful beams of their headlights, which was so dark it kind of cut this narrow beam through the pitch black forest. So for about a half an hour or so, Ben continued to lead the way, weaving through the trees with his friends close behind. The cold air whipped at his face, and he felt this rush of adrenaline and freedom. And this was exactly what they had been looking for. Eventually, they reached a familiar intersection of trails and pulled up next to each other, cutting their engines. And all of them just took a minute and were like, wow, it's so quiet out here. And so they just sat there for a few minutes, talking and laughing, their breath pluming in the air, really enjoying themselves. Well, they took off again. Ben was still in the lead, and he felt confident and decided to explore a less traveled game trail he'd seen before. This trail was narrow, and he had to maneuver carefully, but it soon opened up into a wide, beautiful clearing. Ben gunned the engine and rode out into the open space, his friends following about 50 yards behind him. And as he sped across the clearing, he came up on a small mound of snow. He hit it with a bit of speed, getting a little air before landing softly on the other side. But as his headlight beam settled, it illuminated something on the ground.
No, I might do that Bill Snyder link tomorrow. The one you just sent, I might do that tomorrow.
That made him slow to a stop. There, in the pristine, unbroken snow, was a set of tracks. and these were huge, much larger than any animal track he'd ever seen. And the prints were sunk deep into the 10 inches of fresh snow, which means that whatever made them was incredibly heavy. Ben's first thought was that it had to be a moose because they were very common here and they're massive. So he followed the tracks with his eyes, and they led to a spot about 20 feet away where it looked like something had pushed aside a huge area of snow and lay down for a while. It was a large, matted depression, big enough for a very large animal. And the first thing that comes to his mind is this must have been a moose bedding down for the night, just trying to rationalize the strangeness of the scene. But his curiosity got the better of him. His friends were still behind, just entering the clearing, and he figured he had a minute to investigate, right? So he followed the tracks as they continued away from the depression and went over another small hill. He slowly drove his snow machine up the incline, his headlight pointing up into the dark sky, and as he crested the hill, the beam of his light dropped. There, not 10 or 12 feet in front of him, was this creature, enormous, covered in dark, thick hair, and running away from him on two legs. Ben was simply frozen, his mind unable to process what was happening, and then he had this wave of primal fear go over him. So he slammed on the brakes, his entire snow machine skidding to a halt, and it just continued to run and jumped cleanly over a large snow-covered log and vanished. Ben didn't even think. He yanked the handlebars of his snow machine, spinning it around, and gunned the engine, racing back the way he came. So he flew over the hill back towards the first mound where they had initially seen the tracks, and he met his friends as they were just coming over it. They were very confused by his sudden, frantic retreat. He didn't slow down, he just kept screaming, "We need to get out of here now," and just blasted past them. He didn't look back to see if they were following. He just rode as fast as he could, completely terrified out of his mind. He didn't stop until he was back on the main road. His friends, who pulled up a moment later, were laughing, and they're like, "Dude, what's your issue? What was that all about?" But Ben was so on edge and he's shaking, and he tried to explain to them what he saw. But of course, his friends just mocked him. They laughed at him, and they burst out laughing. And they're like, "Dude, it was probably just a bear or, someone in a gorilla suit trying to mess with people. I think you're losing it. It wasn't a bear, and it certainly wasn't a person because it was so powerful and fluid in its movement, and it had long swinging arms at its side, and it kind of just plowed through the deep snow with such an ease that it was impossible." And even several times after this, his friends started to bring up the moose incident in the woods where Ben got spooked by seeing a large moose, and they never let him live it down. But Ben was 100% positive about what he saw in the beam of his headlight that night, alone in the Alaskan wilderness. He had seen a Bigfoot. One of the largest debates in the field is that Bigfoot is more than just an ape. It's a supernatural creature capable of mind speak, going through portals, and possessing power far beyond human comprehension.
You encounter these sort of two different kinds of Bigfoot. The one that is, as I said earlier, more primitive and more like a smart ape, and then the other one, which is clearly telepathic and able to communicate in very sophisticated ways. And that seems to be consistent across the board as it pertains to Bigfoot. Some people, for example, I have my friend Mancow, the famous shock jock from Chicago, had a very close encounter with a Bigfoot in Missouri when he was a boy. And it was, and he's talked to me about it in great detail. And he just believes it's a big animal, it's a beast. And the way he describes it is indeed very bestial. It was just like a large, intelligent gorilla, something like that, but not anywhere near as intelligent as a human being, but more intelligent than a gorilla. And it was clearly an animal. And, he was very close to it. But then there's a story I'm tracking here in Montana where some individuals I know are having encounters with a Bigfoot, a male and a female. And this thing is not just an animal. This is an intelligent being that seems to have extraordinary capabilities. So these two things are always in play. These two, versions of Bigfoot are always in play. And some people will attest to the fact this is just a smart ape, and others will say, no, this is something more than just a smart ape.
Eyewitness Ernie Davio had his own shocking encounter, and based on his experiences, This seems like far more than just a large beast.
But this area here, I've hunted all over the East Coast, New Hampshire, Maine, Vermont, Connecticut. And one of my favorite places that I used to go up into with my brother was the Cobble Mountain Reservoir area. Even back then, it was very steep in legend. And a lot of it is very hard to get into. That morning, it was the last day of hunting season in the state of Massachusetts for shotgun. And I know a lot of people, they say you can't hunt deer with a shotgun. Yeah, you can. Okay, in some states, that's all you can use unless it's primitive firearms. 12 gauge shotgun, 2 3/4 inch slugs. I only carried buckshot if I had to go into Mount Laurel or something like that. I knew which direction pretty much that the wind was going to be blowing that day, and I had to go up in the Westfield area up towards the Cobble Mountain area, and I had passed by a farm, and so I drove by that farmland. And I don't know, maybe a mile or so down the road, you can either take a right and go into Cobble Mountain, or you can park right there, and then you have to walk in. You know, on the left-hand side of the road, you have to walk down an old fire road, and it's only accessible for employees that are going to be checking the reservoir or anything like that. And there was a marker there. It's called Indian Rock, and it was a profile of 3 different Indians on the same rock. Little ways past that was the trail I was going to take, and it happened to go up Drake Mountain. As it went up Drake Mountain, it slung off to the left a little bit. So you had to walk in there like maybe a half mile or so, I guess, and sling off to the left, and then it'd go up over the top of the ridge of that mountain, about 3/4 of the way up, right on that bow where it straightened back out to the right and went up over the ridge. There were a set of 3 boulders up there. I used to look at it, and you have those thoughts in your head. Well, that looks like, how did these boulders get here? That looks like Stonehenge in a way, you know. But I had found evidence that the deer were actually bedding down in that area too. There's plenty of feed in the area, but there's another reason why I chose that area. I had all that marked on a topographical map. So I knew basically where they were going to be that morning, because the wind was actually blowing down the side of Drake Mountain, down over the Granville Reservoir side. So I proceeded in, and as I got, I don't know, fairly close to that, those boulders where I figured the deer would be bedded down, I could see my breath, and it was a little crispy outside. You can kind of get used to telling the temperature outside, because if you can just instantly see your breath when you puff your breath out, that's pretty cold. That's probably 30 or below. Okay, but I jumped the deer. The deer obviously heard me. They never seen me. They didn't smell me, you know, because I listened to them. They jumped up and they took off straight off towards the top of that ridge that paralleled the road that I'm about ready to take, because I figured that blew my chances of getting a deer right there. But my only hope now was to stalk them and then get out in front of them and set up an ambush them, you know. And the way I did that is I would take like what I call a 2-step. I don't want to be sounding like a 2-legged animal. If it does hear me, I'm going to be as quiet as I can. But if it does hear me, I'm going to go toe heel. Plus, you can adjust your weight a lot better that way than walking from your heel to your toe and then taking off on that. That's how you actually crunch up little twigs and things like that. I could hear them just on the other side of that ridge. Couldn't see them, but I could hear them. They were paralleling the same road that I was on. Hindsight, I could hear something on the other side of them, and I figured it was probably just a buck or something like that. 200, maybe a little over 200 yards to the point where I would have to ambush them. That road traveled straight down towards that path traveled straight down towards that apple orchard, which was probably now about at least a mile from my location. The ambush point that I had planned on actually doglegged back down around the other side of where they're getting ready to come through. And Drake Brook came out of the mountain right almost at the very top right there. So on that dogleg, there was a stone wall that went directly across from the road that I was on to that dogleg, right on that corner there. That was my ambush point. That's where I was hoping to get to. I got to it. But as I approached it...
Thanks, Sean. He doesn't come on for another 15 minutes, so... Paul runs some interviews before Mike from around the world usually.
Of course, if you're a hunter, you're going to look around. You don't want any crowds popping up.
He usually goes 12:15 my time, and it's 11:54 at the moment.
Or pheasant, turkey, or even squirrels run around. Some squirrel, they get a lot of red squirrels up around there, and them things will just totally rat you out, give you away, and start chattering and everything else. I didn't see a blessed thing. There wasn't anything there. So I set up my position. I could hear them coming through the top of that ridge there. They're headed towards that stone wall, and they slowed down. I could hear what sounded like scraping, the ground. So I figured that they're probably browsing, So I'm facing that stone wall, crouched down a little bit, and I pick up movement on my 9 o'clock rate. I'm right just in my peripheral. It sounded like the deer kind of stopping. They were just grazing just a little bit, browsing. I looked over. I still got my shotgun pointed over there because I know whatever it is on the ground. I looked over there. Now, people, when I tell you that I figured it's probably a deer silhouette, lengthwise, laid spread out on there with its head on the other side of that tree. I was brought up to not shoot a deer laying down, sleeping. It was laying there.
Hey,
And I could hear the deer getting a little bit closer. And I looked back over there because I have my shotgun, and I halfway between, we'll say, because I don't know if it's going to just pop up and run, then I can get a shot. So I'm flipping back.
What do you reckon? Should I switch to Paul now then? He does have interesting interviews on. Hang on. Okay, there he's there. There he's there.
Really close to us. But NASA's saying, no, it's not going to hit us, but it could hit the moon. And what you're saying, BP, if this thing hits the moon, it will shatter rocks from the moon and itself, and we can't miss it. There's no way to avoid that. We're going to get hit with some of that. And
Right.
The Bible says in Revelation chapter 8 that there's at least two big, deep impacts that hit the earth. One looks like a burning mountain that hits the sea, creates a tidal wave, apparently a tsunami that kills or wipes out a third of.
It's like God shot the world with a shotgun. We're just waiting for the bullets to land.
The ships in the ocean and a third of the life in the oceans. And the other one hits on land, and it has so much radiation that it poisons the fresh water and even the aqueducts. And many men die, called wormwood. Am I right, BP, what I'm saying?
Yep.
Oh, that's exactly what it says. And we've seen that pollution of a third of the oceans with the earthquake at Fukushima.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. They did.
How far are we into?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me ask you, BP. They never really told the people how much marine life died from that Fukushima thing, but it killed a ton of fish and whales and seals and dolphins and marine life. I mean, didn't it? It destroyed a lot of it.
Yes, it did. And people still swim in it. It's a great current. They're still releasing it. That current does a clockwise.
Oh man, people are swimming in it.
Islands, a little south of there, all the way down through California, and then loops back to Japan. It's a continuous loop, and they're continuously letting it out. And it killed the shellfish up around Oregon and Washington, knocked the salmon population way down.
Now, BP, I'm just going to throw this out there for you because this is really weird. I'm not saying this is a 7-year tribulation, but it's really weird that this Comet Atlas or whatever this thing is, it's going to go, it's closest to the sun on Halloween of 2025, this year. 3.5 years exactly to the day is April 13th, 2029. That's when Apophis either hits us or scrapes by us so close it'd be scary. And then if you go 3.5 years after that, it's your asteroid you're talking about that's coming in December 22nd, 2032. Not exactly 3.5 years, but real close to it. Do you feel like that's weird that we're having these three things, one, and then 3.5 years, this one, and then that one? I mean, is it kind of weird? I mean, should we look at that?
Yes, we better look at it. Our Father told us, Christ told us to look at it. So I'm going to look at it. And Paul, that just something, maybe a side note about Y-24.
Okay.
Okay. And it just shatters, we get meteor showers and all that. It would throw that impact could throw off the gravitational connection between the Earth and the Moon just enough to throw the plates into chaos. But what else they're talking about is it would wipe out the satellites.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh.
The other thing is the space shuttle, of course, would be wiped out. And that's why I mentioned the day that trip to the space shuttle got shut down because of weather in Florida. You went through some of that.
Yes, I did.
We did too. I tell you what, we had some of the loudest thunder I've ever heard this afternoon here.
Yep.
And one of them sounded like a bomb.
I tell you what, it was so bad. I got knocked off the air when a lightning bolt hit out here, and it literally hit my microphone, boom, like that. But my little dog, Bobo, and the two cats we got out there, they were so afraid. And usually, cats don't care. They were so afraid. They were crying. They were crying. I mean, I never heard cats cry, but they were that afraid.
Animals have a sense that we don't have.
Yeah, you're right.
And they are blessings from our Father. And some say even guides to let us know what's really going on, because they have, again, a lot better hearing, a lot better smell, and a lot better senses. My huskies, all 9 of them, can read my mind somehow. If I'm thinking, about, I can think maybe it's time they want a snack. They'll look at me and jump up and go to running around in the kitchen howling, doing the husky howl. I don't know how they do.
And they can do that just if you think about
it. Thinking about it. That's something. Maybe the look in my eye or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, no, seriously, there's a connection there. You got 9 huskies, by the way. You got 9 huskies.
9 huskies, a lab, and a shepherd. Most are rescued except 6 of the huskies. One of them had a litter, a female, with our male husky when we rescued her, and she gave us 9, and we rehomed 4 of them when they were 8 weeks old to very close friends of mine, and I check up on them very regular. But we have 11 total, and some cats in the barn.
God bless you. God bless you. Down there in Jackson, Mississippi, God bless you. I mean, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, Paul, let me say one other thing. I know we're running out of time, but we're talking about the satellites and the space shuttle and the meteor showers, right?
Yeah.
Because of YR4. Well, in Hopi legend, at their date of the end of this current age, when they stop their ceremonies, is how they say it, or the end of the current age, is that the blue star falls. Now they're saying would be, and it's called a house in the sky falls. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
And that is that's what they call it. That's what the space shuttle is. It's the only house in the sky that we have, and it would create more or less, if it was knocked out, this star effect, and that's what they're talking about.
That's Hopi legend. That's like a Hopi prophecy, isn't it?
Yes, that would be, and that's the end of their age and the end of their ceremonies.
I see.
It's when that thing falls. I don't know how that ties in, but there it is.
Well, God works in mysterious ways, and so he's been talking to different tribes around the world for centuries, for millenniums. And so, who are we to counsel the mind of God? God loves everybody, and he's trying to get to people. Right. So obviously, the Hopis have been very accurate with prophecies in the past. And so, it's interesting to pay attention to that. They're very good people, we know. But, it's interesting to see how some of the revelation that we have in the Word of God, how it sometimes matches the revelation that certain tribes seem to get when they're looking to God. So I'm not going to be I'm not going to be the judge here. I'm just going to let God be God,
That's right, Paul. All of it will come, all of the beliefs and religions will come together at the very end time and realize there's one Father.
That's
and
what it says.
He spoke to everyone, and that it often now does Satan come in with the Tower of Babel and try to confuse everything, split the people up, different religions. Now we see the conflict all over the world, because a lot of it's a religious ideal.
Oh yeah, yes.
But all of that will come back together, and like you said, I hope you're very peaceful people.
Yes.
We did that interview with Brother Martin there in Phoenix, but I think we're going to see everything coming together. The quakes, the comets, the asteroids, and all of the different teachings is about to happen.
Wow.
We're going like your title says, sixth seal into the seventh seal. And you can talk about 3.5 years to 7 years. But Christ said it, if I had not shortened that time,
there you go.
There would be no flesh left.
There you go.
It keeps us thinking. He said, I don't know the time of day. Only my Father.
Amen.
I can't set a date on it, but we can definitely observe and look, because like that song.
We can know the seasons. We don't know the date, but we can read the plate.
He has us under our wings that you played earlier.
Yes.
I think under his wings also means under his teachings and knowledge, because my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge.
Amen.
So,
amen.
That's right.
BP,
said, why are you worried about it?
Yeah.
That's
well, BP, let me say this. I'm going to be scheduling you here in a few days to be one of our speakers in this next webinar, which is going to air, folks, August 29th, Friday night, August 29th. So I'll be interviewing BP's going to be one of the speakers. It's called The Earth is Tilting. And what does that mean? If the earth is tilting, which the Bible said it would, if you read Isaiah chapter 24, it tells you the earth will actually flip upside down or tilt. It'll rock to and fro like a drunkard, okay? But what does this mean? And what are the effects of it? BP is going to be one of our speakers. I'm sure we'll talk about Atlas and everything else while we're doing that. But BP, I want to thank you. Oh, by the way, guys, go to BP's, first of all, two things.
Okay, guys, it's still 10 minutes before Mike comes on. I don't want to hear his songs, even though Diane wants me to.
Hawks have the sharpest eyesight of any animal. They can spot a rabbit more than 3 kilometers away. Now, imagine a super fund with vision that sharp, but instead of rabbits, they're hunting for ways to keep fees low. Vision super vision.
Just joking, Di.
Australia, are you wasting more than you think? Let's start unwasting food by turning a change of plans into a freezer surprise.
Back and forth. So now I'm watching over on the other side of that stone wall, because this thing is moving, start getting up even more, bunching up, I want to say, and it's big bodied. So I'm assuming it's taking my attention again, and I'm back on it. Still trying to maintain concentration on those deer on the other side of that stone wall, and I'm thinking now that it's not a deer, that it's a bear. Big body, still got its head around the other side of the tree, and I definitely don't want to get bum rushed by a bear. Maybe it came out of the tree and it had cubs in somewheres around close by. That would probably promote the bear being angry at me, and at 35 or 38 yards, whatever you want to call it, that's close quarters for me. I've got slugs in that gun, and I buckshot in that gun. The first shot counts. It started getting up a little bit more. And then now I can see that it doesn't look like a bear. It looks like a guy. So now I'm flipping back. I'm flipping back straight towards the deer on the other side of that stone wall, halfway to 3/4 of the way, standing with his head on the other side of the tree, hugging the tree. I'm thinking definitely this is a man. The silhouette is a man. And I've got my shotgun pointed right over that stone wall. And he continues to get up. And now I'm thinking that what I need to do, because his head's on the other side of that stone wall. They're on the other side of that tree. If those deer come over that stone wall, they're going to come between us. They could come between us, or one could come between us. And that first deer that comes over, believe me, that was going to be the one that I was going to shoot. So I want to be able to be at least in his peripheral vision, so that if he sticks his head around my side of the tree, he's going to have to. If a deer tries to come between us, he's going to spot me. He's going to pick up movement from me. Looking at this so-called guy again, and he's absolutely big. He's huge. I'm looking for a marker on the tree. I'm looking for a twig, a branch, something. I don't know how this is all going to go down. If he's going to walk away after all this is said and done. But I mean, this guy was big. I've never really seen a guy. I've seen some big men, and this guy was a little bit beyond that. I found a piece of moss on that tree, and I said, okay, I put it in my memory bank. I said, okay, let's get back to work here. And looking back over that stone wall, and all hell broke loose on the other side of that stone wall. I have no words to describe this to people. It sounded like something came out of the trees. I could hear boulders, not just rocks or stones. I could hear boulders clacking, like being thrown and hitting another boulder. I could hear what sounded like if you went down to a gymnasium and they have a 250-pound hanging bag and you hit it with a baseball bat. You can distinctly tell if they used a baseball bat or if they just used a little a tree branch or something. This was not a branch. This was a limb. This was big. This was definitely making contact with something. There was a knockdown, drag out going on over there. Everything you can imagine was going on. I didn't hear any screaming. I didn't hear any grunts or groans. This being that was at the tree, he stuck his head around my side of the tree, and he was looking directly across over that stone wall, and he caught me in his peripheral. I'm no longer in the crouch position. I'm standing. I'm waiting for them deer one of them to go left, right, up the middle, whatever, hoping anyways. But
okay, I'll switch back to Paul, guys. Mike must be joining any minute.
Who's helping me sing that song? Maybe let's say it the other way. I'm helping Israel Hall sing that song, Silver Streets. It's on my album, Harmonize and Prophesy. Israel Hall wrote that song. I think it's a great song. No doubt about it.
Sing it, Paul. Sing it for us.
That is such a perfect timing. BP Earthwatch, guys, was just with us. He is amazing, and we just want to thank God for him. Yes, we're getting ready to do a webinar. You can't even get a ticket yet, but you can still get a ticket for Silencing the Serpent. It's at our website. Just go to paulbegleyprophecy.com. And let me just say, you could call in the morning if you'll call 765-414-2230. You can order this webinar on the spot, okay? And your link will be sent right to you on the spot. Or you can order right now, and we'll get it sent to you by morning, if not tonight, maybe tonight. Okay.
Shawnee.
My book, Revelation 9:11. The audio book is out. The audio book is out. You just go to Audibles and.
Can he ever do a show without flogging something? This guy's got no shame at all.
You can buy it, okay? Go to Audibles and you can buy it, all right? I hope you enjoy it, all right? I hope you really enjoy it. It takes, I read the book, I read the entire book, and it takes 7 hours and 9 minutes, okay? 7 hours and 9 minutes to read that. For me to read that book, I took my time, give you the emphasis on the.
I'd rather read a book than listen to it on audio.
Areas that I think need to be emphasized. And you know what? Even if you've read the book, when you listen to it again on audio, you get a whole different perspective. For whatever reason, it's just like I can read the Bible, but if I hear somebody read it to me, and the anointing gets transferred, and the information becomes even more powerful. If you haven't read the book, and maybe you're not a good reader, or you're like me, you struggle with reading or words or vocabulary, Get the
You don't struggle with maths and money, though, do you, Paul?
Audible book, okay? And there you can listen to it, and that'd be a blessing to you. Now, let me just say, there's a lot going on with CERN. There's a lot going on. I mean, scientists have created what they call antimatter qubit that could upend the physics. And right now they just cranked it.
That looked like that thing we just saw on the other show I was watching, where the UFO guy stood on the sand and it was making a hissing sound. That's what it looked like.
And that'd be a blessing to you. Now, let me just say, there's a lot going on with CERN. There's a lot going on. I mean, scientists have created what they call antimatter.
Doesn't that look like the last episode that guy was talking about?
Qubit that could upend the physics. And right now they just cranked it today. They cranked CERN so hot today, and maybe that's why the space stations transfer of astronauts, they took a day and they're going to recalculate and they're taking it. They didn't do it. Maybe that had something to do with it, or maybe there's issues with this incoming atlas, whatever it is. I can't wait to find out what Mike from around the world has to say about the earthquake in Russia, the tsunami that followed, the volcano that followed. And guess what? This Saturday night, it's the 9th of Av. It starts Saturday night at sunset and all day Sunday. That's the 9th of Av. That's when the first temple was destroyed. That's when the second temple was destroyed. And Begley is so full of it. Thank you, Yonde. Don't take him, guys. Guys, don't ban him. Don't ban him. Leave him alone. Leave him in there. I'm just working with him. But let me just say, that's when the first and second temples were destroyed. And so it's very significant. We're in a war right now in Gaza. There's all kinds of stuff going on right now with Ukraine and Russia. We just about broke into a wide open war between Pakistan and India a couple weeks ago. We just about had a big war between Cambodia and Thailand. We've got wars, brutality. Christians are being butchered and murdered down in the Congo, over in Uganda, over in Zimbabwe, in South Sudan. Turkey is always wanting to get into something. Everybody's on edge. And today Israel did strikes on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Israel's being attacked by 7 different directions. We're living in the end time. You can't stop Bible prophecy. This is partly what the Bible said was going on. Then we've got these communists and these radical Islamists to the rise. That we got these commies, we got these socialists, we got these communists, we got these radical Islamists. We got all these guys rising up. The guy in New York City. We got people everywhere. There's sleeper cells running wild that we've lost sight of them. I've got insiders from the government telling me that there are sleeper cells that we were studying and watching for 30 years that got away. They're just all of a sudden they just disappeared. Their website, their emails, they're not at the home they were in. Their cars are on the side of the road. They can't find them. Their cell phones are off. They just disappeared. No, they didn't. They're right here in this country, and we don't know what it means. And then
doesn't sound good though.
And massacre. And we got planes falling out of the sky. We got another one. Delta almost fell out of the sky. 25 people in the hospital yesterday when this plane had to hit a turbulence and threw the people everywhere off the top of the roof of the plane. We got, listen, where the earthquake was in Russia, there's a Russian nuclear submarine, a base. I'm not saying that caused it, but could that earthquake have caused radiation leaks? Joining us right now from somewhere around the world,
Mike from around the world.
Mike, how you doing tonight?
Pastor Paul, I'm doing well tonight.
That's wonderful, because somebody's going to have to help explain to us. Earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes, nuclear bases in the same area. Mike, what's going on? What's happening in this last week?
Oh boy, everything. Everything is starting
Oh. Did we dodge a bullet with this? This was the 6th largest earthquake in the history of the world.
Yeah, I don't think it's over.
You don't think it's over?
It didn't cause much damage like that one in Turkey about 6 months ago where 12,000 died. This one yesterday in Russia doesn't seem like it destroyed any infrastructure.
No,
Talk
I don't think it's over.
Talk to
Well, it's a multifaceted situation, but I do know that the North Pacific is really active right now. The entire Ring of Fire, yes, but for example, today there's lots of some small cracks between Washington and Oregon out in the waters, and of course that's not very promising.
No.
Not to mention there's a vibrational rumbling taking place on the west coast of the USA. So if the Ring of Fire is losing its stability because of plate tectonics, we're in for a brand new ride here.
Okay, and while this is going on, yes, we know Atlas is coming. The sun is very volatile. You've talked about in the past the 5 waves of energy. We have wars, rumors of wars. So, and not counting all this, like these fault lines in the North Atlantic. There was an earthquake up north of Canada between Canada and Greenland. It was a 5.0 today. Nobody's even talking about it.
Yeah.
Southern California at a 4.4. Nobody even talking about it. I mean, is this going to become an everyday occurrence?
Yeah, if you look at
Mars, it didn't seem to kill anyone though, did it?
this over time.
Russia was lucky to get no fatalities out of an 8.8 earthquake. Wow.
There's a notable increase in earthquake activity, specifically, with what's involved. At first, the sun did its due diligence on the earth, but now we have other forces, right? If the sun's energy, if its influence is minimized, we will automatically have an influence from another source. It's kind of like having a magnet, right? And another magnet behind it. If you move the closest magnet out of the way, you still have magnets behind it. So you're going to have some sort of interaction between those forces. And there's also a reason that we're getting these, well, I can't let that one out yet. Let's just say that Atlas,
okay, go ahead.
the Atlas, this Atlas issue, where it came from.
Okay.
There will be observations of others coming from a pretty high arc. They will. The next one is to be discovered, right? If I'm right on this, if nothing else hits, there's some high arc objects that will be headed in our direction.
Are these interstellar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So even that will become, that's not going to be an unusual thing. I just believe that we're in a very different part of existence right now. It's not like we have space mapped out all the way. And there are some unexpected things happening. And of course, I believe we live in a binary system. So the forces.
Okay, Shawnee, good night. God bless.
Binary twin, right? We're going to interact on the solar system, which means here's the one. I'm watching. I'm not the only one. Watching Jupiter. Do you know that Jupiter is our protection? You know that, right? If something happens to Jupiter.
Why is it our protection? Because it creates a balance with our sun?
Well, it does that, but its gravitational pull protects us from a lot of objects. The secondary line of defense would be the asteroid belt, right?
Okay.
If something happens to Jupiter, that's taking the gates down in the inner solar system. Is highly vulnerable. The only reason we have not been, obliterated so far is because of Jupiter.
Praise God.
To say that bluntly.
Praise God.
So yeah, the solar system is set up in this perfect sense for protection.
It is absolutely perfect in what it does. But if something happens to Jupiter, all the inner planets are going to be in trouble, including us. I mean, big time. Because if anything disturbs the asteroid belt, just think about that. I know we have a lot of objects coming in.
Yes, yes.
But think about what these objects could potentially disturb. That's one thing sometimes we will fail to think about, is that if anything disturbs our satellites, if anything disturbs the asteroid belt, right, that could potentially end us here on Earth.
But we don't want that.
Well, think about something getting past Jupiter and it goes right through the asteroid belt. It's going to be like a pool table, right? You can have one object hit another, hit another. They're going to be headed in towards us, towards the sun, right?
Yes.
That's going to be right in our orbit. So we'll have a meteor storm that we didn't expect. That's almost a guaranteed impacts on the Earth, right? And if something hits these satellites, if anything hits these satellites, it's going to be like a ricochet. One will ricochet off the other one. Satellites carry some pretty volatile pods, right, with some dangerous chemicals inside. Some of these satellites are small cubic. Satellites are very old, right? Think of a container like a half gallon of milk that if it fell into the atmosphere, it could kill all life on Earth in probably about a month.
You know, BP talked, we just had BP Earth Watch on just before you came on. And he was talking about, you know, we were talking about Comet or the Atlas, whatever it is. But he kept saying, you know, here's the problem we have. And that is there's that asteroid YR4 that's coming about 7 years from now that may not hit us, but now that it could very well hit the moon. And if it did, it would create some massive explosion and rocks flying. And first of all, it would shatter the object, but also the moon itself. And we would be, you know, we could be affected by it. Is that
would be affected by it.
Where are we at with that? Do you have some calculation?
If anything hit the moon, now first of all, we're gonna be in trouble, right?
Yeah.
That gravitational field that we share, right? This balance that the Earth and the moon is in is very delicate. It's also pretty strong. The moon should have gone out of orbit a long time ago, but it has not. There's no degradation in its gravitational positioning. So if something crashed into the moon, we're going to have debris headed towards us for about, I'd estimate for about maybe 5 days, 5, 6, 7 days.
Okay, so he confirmed that he didn't know exactly how long, but he said we would be out for several days or so.
And that depends, because if it takes a big chunk out of the moon, those chunks are going to orbit, and every time they orbit, they're going to lose. They're going to lose their altitude, so to speak, or distance from the Earth. So they'll crash into the Earth too, right? They had a simulation on this, and based on the chunk taken out of the moon, we could have some sort of a meteor storm for about a month, up to a month, right? Depending on how much material is ejected from the moon, so that wouldn't be good. And yes, there is a possibility of these objects, right, disrupting, hitting satellites, hitting the moon, right? There's always that possibility. It is, we've been blessed so far that we can see an object that's way out there and nothing has hit that object, right?
Yeah.
Now think about Atlas. If it comes in and something hits that object, now two things will happen here. It could alter the trajectory of Atlas. It could also send debris directly towards us. It could send more junk towards us, right? So, and it's so far out there, this could happen at any time, which is why, you know, Space Command and those guys track things like that to see what could potentially happen. But I think that to minimize this one would be a bit foolish. I say that because the meteor storms, the meteor showers that we have, the scheduled ones, they're at their biggest points. This year, 20, 25, 26, and 27, they're going to be at their most abundant points, meaning there's a lot of material headed towards us in these standard meteor showers. Because of that, we already have, in a sense, debris headed towards us. If those trajectories begin to intersect, we're going to have a double problem. We're going to have a problem we didn't expect.
I see.
I do suspect that's going to happen. I have a very strong suspicion that will likely happen.
So in other words, in 2025, 2026, 2027, we're going to encounter a meteor shower. Already we know is coming. But now you're saying there's now a possibility that more ricocheted rocks that's coming out of the interstellar, coming from somewhere, could cause even more problems that we don't even know. And that's kind of, the Bible says that in the last days that, that the heavens are going to, the stars are going to fall from heaven like a fig tree casting its untimely figs as it's shaken of a mighty wind. So something's going to happen in the heavens, right, Mike?
Yeah, it will. And sometimes we look at the word of God as though these events will happen in 1 hour, then they'll be over, right?
No, but they won't. No.
When the seals open, nobody shuts the seals. This is a cumulative effect. Revelation is.
Thank you.
So everything builds and builds and builds. And if you start looking at right up to the 6th seal, we're already in trouble. Right? We could literally right now, we've had so many things initiated. Right now, we could really say we're right there at the 6th seal. Right?
Yep.
We could say that.
Yep.
Because everything has been taking place. There's a constant death rate. Disease is taken over. There's a type of herpes that is in the schools now, right?
What?
And wrestlers are they're starting to transfer this one to another, athletes. So if you touch the mat, and one of these teens have had that, there's no cure for it either.
Wait a minute.
So that's just one thing. What
kind of herpes? What kind of herpes is that? What is it?
It's
like a cold sores and
no, it starts with, it's often misdiagnosed. It starts with lots of pimples on the forehead.
Okay.
Right? Normally a kid's hair is covering that up and it spreads throughout the body. Now, most doctors have misdiagnosed this on many of these kids, and it's spreading like wildfire. It's spreading so bad to the point now they're suing a lot of these, some of these parents are starting to sue the schools, right? Because they didn't safeguard against that.
No. So you're saying contact sports could start spreading a type of herpes virus?
Well, it is spreading. It's not a good. It is. It's already begun.
So, I mean, what's the plan? I mean, are they going to shut down contact sports? Are they going to change how they go about it? What?
I don't know. That's one of a lot. One of a lot.
Where did it come from, Mike? Where did it come from?
Who knows, Pastor? But this stuff they're feeding kids. You know, I got a question for you. All the hamburgers that people eat. Why don't I ever see a lot of cows in every single state to account for all these hamburgers? I'm just saying.
Mike, you're trying to say that the hamburger might be not really beef, but something else.
Well, I mean, all these McDonald's and all these Whoppers.
Where's all the meat? Where's all the meat coming from?
You should see cows every 10 feet, but you don't.
Are they using human?
You don't.
Are they using human?
Well, we know that they've been growing meat for a long time. We know they have the bioengineered labels.
Oh, it's not meat. It's not.
We know the laws. There are laws now that state that these fast food restaurants do not have to put a bioengineered label on their sandwiches and things, right?
No.
So it's everywhere.
No.
It's everywhere.
No.
Yeah, it's not
Mike.
good.
Okay.
So anyway, these diseases are spreading.
That is a good point, isn't it? You'd see a lot more cows if there's that much meat getting sold in these takeaway shops.
Pastor Paul.
There'd be millions of cows if that was the case.
Also, not only these diseases, the death rate. All right, look at it. We've had a severe lack of childbirth lately.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's almost a 1-to-1 ratio between those who are born and those who die. That means we have a stagnant civilization. It means we're not growing, right? In fact, I believe they said the death rate has overtaken the birth rate, which means there are more people dying than being born, so nothing is being replenished. More and more families have decided not to have children. This is a big problem. In 2023, 2024, and 5, more people have decided not to have children. It's almost a 50% cut in the population, just like that. You know how they state that somebody's trying, they want to decrease the population?
Yes.
They already effectively did that. You stop childbirth. That's how you do it. You don't have to do that evasively. You psychologically, right? Divert or just turn people away from having kids. How do you do that? Through struggling, right? Financial management, financial hardships.
Yes.
Differences of all these things are happening. It has worked. It's worked. It's effective.
And war.
So,
Look what's going on.
Yeah, war.
Mike, we've been
But
on
I'll
the
tell you
brink of war in Cambodia and Thailand, India and Pakistan, China and Taiwan. And we've already got the wars in the Middle East. We've already got Russia and Ukraine. And I don't see any of those. I don't see a remedy. Do you see a remedy?
No, in fact, there is an escalation point coming. I believe Russia has a mandate. Remember last week I said, poor Russia, they have some soul searching to do, right? So maybe this earthquake helped them out, but they really do have some soul searching to do.
Yeah.
And it does not look good in the Middle East. It simply does not.
It does not.
There's an air of false peace that people should be feeling right now, right? It's almost like all the horrific news has stopped, other than weather, of course. But you have these countries getting ready. I mean, they're really getting ready. Turkey is going back to the negotiating table with Syria and Israel and some other countries. That'll be the end of this next week. We're going to see what comes out of that, because if they don't have some sort of agreement going forward, the financial strain is just taking away too much now. It's taking away
What about the United Nations? Emmanuel Macron leading the way. Everybody got together except the United States and Israel, and they literally are going to this September. The UN in New York is going to be ugly, trying to force. They want to force a two-state solution.
Well, we know what's coming. We know what's coming.
Yeah.
We know what's coming. The USA and Israel the USA in particular right now is being isolated.
Yeah, you're right.
Thought I'd look back for Israel. You just wait. AI is out, right? Artificial intelligence is out. You have other countries who in about 4 months' time, they're going to be on par with the USA. Very diverse in a lot of ways. They will join hands together, right? Within this digital infrastructure against the USA. And the USA knows it. The Trump administration is aware of this. He has a lot on his plate. So what we're in the middle of right now is a true global change. I mean, it's a real global change. And it's going to cause additional pressures in several areas. But it will eventually lead to war. There's no political solution. War is an extenuation of politics by other means. And so here we are, going back to war again. In my opinion, war has never stopped.
Right.
It's not stopped. It's been going on for some time. And then these national disasters are only going to, make it worse. We're coming up to a season now. They know we have inbound forming storms. They already know that. They know the damage. The potential damage of these storms is going to be beyond belief.
Remember when you said there's going to be thunderbolts? There was a lightning flash that was 515 miles long. This was the longest. This is a new world record for a lightning bolt. It went from somewhere in Texas to Missouri, and it broke the record of 477-mile lightning bolt. They know this because of satellites watching the. So Mike, What in the world is going on? You said this would happen. I remember this about 10 years ago. You telling me, hey, Paul, there's going to be thunderbolts. Soon there'll be thunderbolts. Are we there?
Those are atmospheric changes. Of course we are. For example, right now, there's been an increase in those who have been struck by lightning inside their homes. Let me give an example of that. A home where lightning bolt goes through the wall, through a couple of rooms, to the shower, through the shower to the basement. This is happening just about every single storm that has been observed. So lightning is now penetrating homes. Doesn't matter if you're inside or out, right? Which personally I think is a good thing, because people should understand that they're being kept by God's grace, not by human intuition and cleverness. That's God's grace. But these lightning bolts are penetrating everything.
Good thing.
Everything.
You say it's a good thing? Well, I mean,
yeah, it's a good thing.
Meaning what?
Personally, I like lightning and thunder, because it reminds mankind gets quiet when the thunder and lightning comes, right?
Yeah.
You're going to respect the force higher than they are.
My two cats and my dog freak out. I mean, yeah, everybody gets quiet. You're right about that.
Because if the Lord determines when a person goes and when a person stays, right? There's no coincidence. There's a determination.
That's true.
I believe in that determination, not coincidence. So when lightning starts, when it gets heavy like that, mankind has a habit of folding his arms and putting his head down. He'll hush finally. Man is sometimes too loud. Anyway, lightning is getting bad, and so are the vertical sprites going up the opposite direction.
Okay, talk about that.
Sprites are red in color, right? It's like a big plume of plasma that starts at the base of a cumulonimbus cloud, at the upper portion of it, going out into space. They have doubled since they've been observed. So you'd normally have maybe 5 or 6 for every 10 storms. They're seeing them every storm. And in Texas, I believe or Oklahoma, they call a vertical sprite below the clouds. It sustained itself, right? So very soon, we're going to have a condition with plasma actually reaching the ground, sustained plasma reaching the ground. In the old world, if you ever see an emblem that looks like an upside down pyramid with a pyramid below it, like an hourglass, right? That is believed to be a sustained plasma conduit. That's what that's believed to be.
Really? I did not know.
In the etchings of these rocks. Everybody has their interpretation, but there was a group of folks I got this from, and they, I was learning all about these etchings. And they said the spiral, and that represents a sustained plasma conduit, right? Which there have been examples of that, but we'll start having those too. If anything or anybody touches a plasma conduit, because they sustain themselves it's kind of like, think of ball lightning, right? Ball lightning, but held in one position. And if anybody goes near that thing, they're going to get zapped. They sustain themselves for about 2 to 5 minutes, and then they're gone.
All right, Mike. CERN. Today, CERN, I guess, put the full burn, okay? They just went wide open with it. Maybe the greatest they've ever done. Now, they have recently discovered what they call antimatter, but it's called a qubit. Antimatter qubit that could upend physics. Now, what they're also saying, and I want to get your take on this, that this recent activation of the Large Hadron Collider, there's been strange sounds heard, energy waves released, and visual anomalies. They said, since we found the God particle, the Shiva statue, and of course, we know what the Shiva statue means. It means it's the god of the underworld, has moved. So I want to get your take on that one.
Well, think of this: a quantum qubit, right?
Okay.
A bit can be a 0 or a 1 in a computer, right?
Okay, yeah, you're right.
A qubit a qubit can be a 0 and a 1 at the exact same time.
Like a negative and a positive at the same time?
At the exact same time, right? So in essence, an answer to a question exists the moment you ask the question, right?
Okay.
So it's in quantum computing, they have determined it's a better translation if they were to say that information is being pulled from a parallel existence, right? Because you cannot have an answer to a question prior to the question being asked. You can't have that, right? So instead of receiving an answer on a calculator to your input, while you're typing on your calculator in another dimension, so to speak, you've already asked a question. And in some parallel dimension, you've asked a question and the answer's coming back.
Okay.
Right.
Does that mean
so
that would be like you pierce the veil?
Yeah, that's piercing the veil.
Yeah, talk to us. So explain.
So when you do that, right, when you start to access in a very real sense these hyperdimensions, these dimensions that are either so tiny they're incomprehensible or so abstract, no one would ever have the technology to actually pull from it. If they were to do that, wouldn't that cause an imbalance? Right?
Yeah.
I subscribe to the fact that God has all things in balance. No matter how hard we try, right? Everything returns in balance. We polluted the atmosphere, we still have balance, right?
That's true.
Cars do that, we still have balance, we can still breathe. And we're just going through an earth transition. But balance is everywhere. But if you start pulling from, say, a spiritual dimension that you're tampering with, you pull that into this realm of existence, then this realm of existence is going to have to give something up to balance that out, right?
Makes sense.
If everything is in balance, you just simply can't take from one.
No, because
domain
if you
to
take
another.
from one, you have to replace it with another. So
right.
if you got
Same thing
matter,
happening.
you got matter, you're going to have antimatter, and they got a balance. Am I right?
Right. You can't pull a bunch of antimatter into where you had the matter. Right. They know what happens. They've seen what happens on a small scale. On a small scale, it is devastating. And so this is why you have a lot of scientists who have been removed from CERN, right? Because they believe that something has already happened. It's just that the people are not aware of it.
Well, no, that's right. That's right.
And in quantum computer, when you're dealing with quantum computing, it is an impossible science. It is incredibly abstract, weird. They call it spooky sciences, right?
Yeah.
So of course, you're going to, in order to get antimatter and things of that nature, you're going to have access to a realm. Now, here's the funny part. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
They know that purely through technology, you cannot access that realm. Here's, I'm going to give you a key that goes all the way back to the beginning when they started this stuff. Okay. In order to access those realms, in order to have the weapons they want, in order to access some of the technology they're really trying to make work, you have to access the demonic realm. Period.
Whoa! So you're saying that, like for instance, the nuclear bomb, these type of weapons of mass destruction, you got to go beyond nature's physics, beyond astrophysics, beyond mathematician geniuses. Are you saying
what they're doing is,
Phil, we had a guy come through customs at the airport, and he had a child sex doll from Japan, and they charged him as though it was a real kid. They charged him with child, whatever it is. Yeah, they charged him as though, and I was so glad they done that.
Sure, yes. Now, a nuclear bomb, that's right at the edge. That's right at the edge.
Okay.
Beyond that, though.
Let me ask you this. Let me read this to you. The explanation behind the universe's matter-antimatter asymmetry is an apparent violation of a fundamental law of nature known as charge party time, or CPT.
Yeah.
Symmetry is one of particles physics' greatest mysteries. A new study has detailed how scientists at CERN created an antimatter qubits which could improve physics investigations into magnetic moment differences between matter and antimatter. But this breakthrough, all along with CERN's ongoing efforts to protect the transport of particles to other laboratories, could drastically change the balance of the universe.
Yeah, you hear that? The transport of particles.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that transport means to bring it into this realm to make it usable. They can observe it. They can even have measurements concerning it.
Okay.
They can even recreate it. But what they can't do is they cannot to utilize it. That's a different mechanism. And with quantum computing, they're actually doing it on an information level. Right?
Okay. Okay.
All those folks working on those quantum computers.
My nephew got one of them dolls as well. It wasn't from Japan. It cost him $2,000. I've told you this before, guys. My nephew bought a sex doll for $2,000.
They were.
He's got a fiance now. I wonder if she knows about that. I bet she doesn't.
3 months ago, something just kind of shook them a little bit because a very complicated algorithm. They needed the output. That you're talking about an algorithm that all the computers in the world would take about 1 million years to produce. They get back before they even finish asking what the algorithm is.
Really?
So just let that sink in. All the computers in the world, including the supercomputers and everything that Elon has, right?
Mm-hmm.
All these, everything the government has would take about 1 million years to calculate what they were looking for. A quantum computer. It solved the problem before they could finish asking or inputting all the values for the algorithm.
Wow.
All right.
So that's like you typing on a calculator. You want to know 100 times 1,000. Before you finish typing 1,000, the answer's back to you. That's what happened.
That's why.
How do
That's
they
the
do that?
impossible. That's the paradox.
I see.
Right? That's what they couldn't. They don't understand how that's working.
I see.
Yeah, I bet they don't.
Mike, I'm going to go to a sensitive subject right now, and I'm going to be careful, and that's the Epstein files. I got to be very careful with this here on YouTube.
Right.
But obviously, Epstein was
Not a good guy.
Not a good guy, and there were people who got involved in what he was doing on some level. I'm not sure. Now, there's a lot of guilt by association that the media wants to throw on people. Billionaires hang out with billionaires. That doesn't mean all the billionaires are pedophiles just because you associated, because they all run in the same level. They go to the same parties. They go to the same gatherings for charities. They go here and there. Some of those individuals in there are pure wicked, not all of them.
Yeah.
So we're coming down to this thing now where it looks like we're going to get some information. What is your thoughts on it? I'm hearing that if it was fully revealed, it might bring the government down, but I don't know if that's true. So I just want to throw it out there for you.
Well, the time we live in is dangerous. Rumors, right? People aren't looking for truth. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for their point, their position to be proven right. And that's all they want.
I see.
So if a person wants, say for example, a person wants a president guilty, then that person will not accept any other.
They're already talking kids into committing, I can't say the word, unaliving themselves. They're already doing that to kids, these quantum computers, this AI.
Information that makes him guilty, right? Those who want him exonerated, same thing. So it's not, people aren't necessarily looking for truth these days. That's not what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Because if they could just use their own brains, they'd realize something. Everybody in their youth, right, did some things they wouldn't want published to anybody else.
Yeah.
If anybody's current day relationships were based on their youth, they wouldn't have a relationship. Chances are, right? People change. And just because you associated with a person a long time ago, prior to them, being fully exposed to what they were, that doesn't make you an accomplice in their, bad dealings. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people out there that fault. You can show them the truth all day. They only will believe what they have a strong desire to believe, or whatever has momentum in the media, right? That's the other part you have to fight. You have to fight the momentum in the media. If you constantly say something over and over,
I thought you were talking about a doll.
you can take a rumor and cause that to be truth by way of the media, and now you're fighting an unfightable fight.
I agree.
So in this case, if information did come out, because of how polarized people are, it could pause the government. It could cause a big problem because people would not accept it, right? They just wouldn't accept it. Somebody could be innocent. They wouldn't accept it.
Okay, so in other words, they would assume guilty. They would assume the worst. Are you saying the public, the media?
They would say something is missing.
They would always
still say
say
something
the
is
worst
missing.
about everybody.
That's right. That's right. Well, the thing became forward, and say a certain person had nothing to do with any of that. You know what the people would say, that they don't really want it that way. They'd say, no, they're holding it back.
Right. There's no way.
They're not bringing forth all the information, and that would continue and continue and continue.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why, but this does raise an opportunity for people to see a mechanism at play.
Okay.
When anything like this happens, and by the way, it's not initialized by America. I'll say that. But when something like this happens, it causes the populace to become stagnant. Right? If you look right now, because of the Epstein files, the economy has plateaued.
Yes, it has. It's flatlined.
When people have a question in their mind, they will not go forward.
Yep.
So then those who govern this globe, they can't have that.
No.
So they always, at any time like this, and there's only been a handful of times like this, they change the story.
Yep.
They change the story. So it's a good time for people to observe, right? To see how that mechanism is going to work, because they will change
That's my KFC lunch, Talia. I got some KFC for lunch.
and they're going to change the story.
They have
and when
to.
they change the story, no one's going to be thinking about, Epstein. It's just not going to happen.
There's going to be bigger fish to fry, and I think that we're seeing that.
Well, it's about my money to make coin noises, not dollar notes.
Develop. So I feel horrible about the girls. I feel horrible about the children. I don't know what to do. I know Epstein was a weirdo. I know he was more than a weirdo. He was a demonic.
But he's not by himself.
But he's not alone.
He was a Mossad agent. We all know that. He was a Mossad agent. Asset, I should say.
That's
there are worse people than him.
Yeah.
He's not even the worst. He's just the one that he was unfortunate enough for his information to be made public through an argument, right? Pastor, there are worse people than him.
I know.
There are worse people than him.
That's what worries me, that there are way worse people than him.
That's why California is happening. Anyway, but there are worse people than him.
Let's leave that there. Okay, Mike, let me just ask you, we'll touch that California thing another day. All right, Mike, we had a plane, a Delta flight that was headed from Salt Lake City to Amsterdam. When all of a sudden it hit some type of pocket of air or whatever, and this thing had a massive what do you call it? Turbo. Turbulence. 25 people had to go to the hospital. The flight attendants were in the middle of the aisle passing out drinks when everybody.
Talia, our KFC has.
They hit the ceiling. If you didn't have a seatbelt on, they hit the ceiling. What's going on here? Is this going to happen more and more, or is it just a
Yes.
Our KFC has things called Wicked Wings. They're chicken wings with chili in them. They're really nice. Apparently, Diane says you haven't got them there.
Yes, they're gonna have to lower the altitude of aircraft, which will increase the price of tickets. By the way, and they'll have to do this because our jet stream, right? Think of our jet stream. In that situation, if a jet crosses the trail of another jet too closely, right?
Yeah.
That air turbulence from those turbines will cause the other aircraft to hit that turbulent air. Once the airfoils go across that turbulent air, there's no lift or there's too much lift, which means that aircraft is going to be jostled. It's going to be bumped up or down. Helicopters or worse. But with the jet stream, when you have cold and hot air, I mean real hot and real cold air,
right?
And they meet together, they cause vortices to form. When this happens, if the aircraft flies through that vortice, it is curtains. They're going to have a vertical descent that's much higher than they ever thought possible, and that has happened a few times, right? But it's getting worse and worse. This hot and cold air where they meet, the temperatures are unbelievable. And that's why it snowed in Lake Tahoe when it was hot one day, snowing the next, or Lake Tahoe, and that went away, and that happened in June, right? And there have been other temperature shears like that. They will get worse until they hit the point where aircraft will not be able to go to a certain AL or altitude, so their FL level is going to be quite low.
That's good explanation, and I think it's important that people understand with this jet stream, what you call atmospheric compression, it's going to cause the planes to have to fly at lower altitudes. Right. Is it also going to affect the hurricane? What do you think about this year's hurricane season? I'm down here in Florida. So
it's crazy.
We're a little nervous. We're really watching. Do you see it? Do
you reckon it's half doing all this damage to the weather, or has it got as well? Or is it sort of teamwork without both realizing it? If you know what I mean.
The water's hot. It's been 100 degrees here, Mike, every day for the last 10 days.
Pastor.
Okay.
Pastor, they're going to have to, I'm telling you, they're going to have to come up with a new truck for some of these, some of the power involved in these hurricanes. Atmospheric compression is higher density in the upper atmospheres, right? Yes. As we continue to go along, we have, to put it bluntly, a type of dust settling in the upper atmosphere. Every time that happens, the density goes up. Every time the density goes up, right, when this dust accumulates, heat can transfer from one molecule to the other. Where it was once hardly anything up there, right? Now it's starting to heat up. Anytime you have a hot upper atmosphere, this changes the potential energy and a few other properties in the upper atmospheres affecting everything below it, right?
Okay.
Take earthquakes, for example. And this is something that if you have a hotter upper atmospheric condition, it will increase the magnetic and voltage potential from the ground or the magma up into the upper atmospheres, right? This can cause magma to heat up in certain spots much higher than what it normally would. When that happens, it can cause slits in the crust of the earth, right?
Yes.
Because inside the earth governs the electromagnetic fields around the earth. But if you start to increase the energy out there, it's going to flow right back into the earth again, right? And it's going to cause this.
I get KFC for lunch probably 2 times a week, just the wicked wings with the chili sauce. Not the chili sauce, the chili wings.
This effect. Well, we're starting to have that. That increases lightning potential, static potential, right? Plasma potentials. That small difference in temperature of the upper atmosphere can alter everything here on Earth. That's what we're saying. We could throw all the cars away. Seriously, right now. The Earth is too active. And it's happening because for the last 6 years, we have absorbed a lot of radiation, more than
normal.
Any other time we've ever recorded, more than we've recorded. Galactic cosmic rays have been coming in like, it's just one of those things. We have a weakened heliosphere. The shielding of the solar system is not what it used to be. And so you have a lot of galactic cosmic rays penetrating the solar system. Well, the Earth is going to observe some of that, right? And anybody with one of these particle tanks where they can see high-speed particles, people can make those at home. You can see the increase in these galactic cosmic rays going right across those platters. So that will continue. That's why they're building these neutrinos. And of course, the facility in the Arctic is not helping either.
What
Because
facility?
it also, well, I can't talk, you have to look at that one, but it will increase atmospheric temperatures at least. My estimate will be about 3 degrees. You know,
okay, now
Oh, Mike didn't want to talk about that, did he? Let's take that back a bit.
penetrating the solar system. Well, the Earth is going to observe some of that, right? And anybody with one of these particle tanks where they can see high-speed particles, people can make those at home. You can see the increase in these galactic cosmic rays going right across those platters. So that will continue. That's why they're building these neutrinos. And of course, the facility in the Arctic is not helping either.
What
because
facility?
It also, well, I can't talk. You have to look at that one, but it will.
Mike did not want to answer that. I wonder what the Arctic base is talking about.
Increase atmospheric temperatures at least. My estimate will be about 3 degrees.
Good night, Phil. God bless, mate.
The Arctic is the North Pole.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out after this as well, guys.
The door up there, you said. Okay, so you're saying the facility in the Arctic is affecting.
Well, let's be fair. They have 2 twin facilities.
Okay.
Right. So if you find the information out about the transmitter in the south portions, you'll know about the other one, and the other one is in a far more,
So if I find out about the transmitter in Antarctica, I'll know more about the facility in the Arctic.
Twin system. It's a twin system.
Is this man-made? This is man-made, right?
Yes, it's man-made, and it is past-rated.
Talia, when I was a kid, me and my mates used to go to Kentucky on the weekend, Kentucky Fried, and ask for the manager, and we told him we'll clean up the car park for a chicken, whatever it was, a chicken box at the time. They always let us do it. We'd always do it in 2s or 3s, and we'd clean up the car park, and they'd give us free Kentucky.
So it's
That was my Rhode Island one who come up with that too.
Enormous. It's one of the most. It's the most powerful machine on the face of the earth.
Wait a minute, Mike. I thought CERN and
No, it's just that nobody. See, unfortunately, when you don't know about something, it's hard to equate that into.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about it. I mean, what are you doing? What are we doing here, Mike? Okay, so I'm talking about CERN and antimatter and matter and the and the protons clashing, and you're telling me that up in the North Pole and down in the South Pole, there's the strongest, most powerful machines on the face of the earth.
Wow.
Yep.
I gotta look into that. Do I gotta get Heidi researching?
She should, because it's so strong. They can track neutrons from. You're talking about light years from the Earth.
Wow.
Right? They can also send a transmission faster than the speed of light. I know a lot of people are going to say, there's no way nothing can go faster than the speed of light. Well, our science is paused on critical minds that established the first theories. Those theories many of them have been broken. They're good standards, but many of them have been broken.
Okay.
And people don't,
the seals are gonna break. The seals are cracking. Would you agree with me that in the Bible, the 6th seal? I'm saying that the 6th seal, we can hear the sound of the 6th seal cracking. Is the Earth tilting?
Guys, and remember they say the Book of Revelation isn't in chronological order. They say that, so it could be that now.
We're going to do a webinar, Mike. We're doing a webinar.
We're tilting, all right.
Yeah, okay. The name of the webinar I'm trying to figure out, is it the 6th seal is breaking or the Earth is tilting? Maybe I'll use that term. But we're going to do a webinar on this Earth is tilting and all the things going on.
Good night, Di.
You can talk to us. I know some of this might be classified, so you can't go there. I realize it. But if we can talk a little bit and theoretically about this Antarctica and Arctic and when you say the Earth is tilting, all right, well, what's causing that? Is that Planet X? What's going on here?
That's a few things. The water on the Earth, right?
Okay.
If something can move the water, because it's a known fact that through water transfers, the Earth has actually tilted, right? Few degrees. This is through dams, right? Through the transferring of water, the Earth has actually tilted.
What do you mean the transferring of water? How's water being transferred?
Well, look at all the waters being transferred from well, in several places to India on a continuous basis. Look at the water diversion plans that they had put in place. China did a lot of it with that dam that they had in China, right?
Okay, I get it.
When they stopped at that water, they actually caused an imbalance.
I agree. And matter of fact,
did that.
BP Earthwatch just typed in the chat room, the Great Dam in China tilted.
That's right.
Earth. Okay.
So think about if they can do that with a dam, what would happen if, I don't know, something could pull all the tide in one direction just for a few seconds? What do you think would happen?
It would shift the whole Earth.
There you go. So guess what? As it turns out, even by modeling and simulation, it only takes a half hour. Strange maneuver from our moon to tilt this Earth in a way that we'll never forget it. Right? That means any force external from the moon, or some hiccup from inside the Earth, or some hiccup inside the moon or the sun or anything, could actually alter the moon just a little bit. And it would absolutely alter the whole face of the Earth.
Well, that makes. What does that do to our brains? Can I just ask that question? If the moon could alter the fluid of the Earth, what does it do to the human brain? I mean,
a lot. They sent those cosmonauts up without the shielding of the Earth, and they lost their frontal lobe connections. Their neurological connections did not hold. Right?
Is that back in the 60s?
That was way back there. That was back when they first went into the upper, when they sent that one dog up or a monkey up or something like that. Yeah. They sent an animal up, and that person, 2 people went up.
Yeah.
But the 2 people, there's a recording of those 2 people going up and never coming back. There's radio recording of screams and things of that nature. But the Soviet Union did quite a bit because they were ahead of us.
They were ahead.
We almost did the same thing through a failure, and that changed our space program in a big way. I believe that's when it split.
Is that the Challenger that exploded?
No. That was during the Gemini missions.
Oh, Gemini.
Gemini missions. Yes, we found that in Gemini missions.
Okay.
But the point being is that our bodies are adapted to live on this Earth.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
Any changes in the upper atmosphere, anything causes people's knees to hurt. Everything else, the fluid starts swelling. Just the smallest changes cause us, lots of pain. And if the magnetosphere was not there, right, our neurological firing would not fire the way it does. We'd have a chemical imbalance in our brain. Our hormonal system would begin to alter. They had to replicate the magnetic shielding of the Earth for all spacecraft. Right, these are costly devices.
And Talia, that Euphrates, that's one of the seals. Lars picked that up. So it's dry now, and you got the 4 angels underneath there. Are they on the loose now?
Because you have to have the Schumann resonance.
Euphrates
and the
pretty dry.
Above and below that resonance to go on these spacecraft, that has to be reproduced. So yes, it's a lot with that. Russia found that out. So if it changes, if our magnetosphere changes, so will the minds of people here on this Earth.
All right, let me ask you a big question here. I know we're getting late in the broadcast, but Trump, the President Trump and his administration just launched a new private health tracking system with big tech to track everything. But haven't they already been tracking everything that we do?
Yeah, nobody has privacy.
There's no such thing, is there?
No.
Is this just the announcement of it?
Yeah, that's more of a formal announcement to get people comfortable with the idea.
It's already happening.
That's what it is. And it should, to my understanding, I believe it goes on a medical bracelet. Right?
Yeah. You said bracelet.
Yeah. Everybody's going to have that bracelet. Well, they have their cell phones now. You know how people said before cell phones went digital, when they were analog and they were cell phones.
I remember that.
People said, I'm not going to take the mark. I'm not going to have anything like that has all my information on it. I want my bank card, my wallet, my phone in the home or something like that they were saying. Well, when they had that mandate that all phones go digital, and everything had to have a change in their SIM card, this, that, and the other. They put everything on the telephone. That conditioned everybody to look in one place for everything they have.
Television went digital.
Yeah.
Radio
it was
went
mandatory.
digital.
Everything is. But your cell phone, think of it this way. Everybody looks at their cell phone for everything, right?
Yep, I do.
And they're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So, and believe it or not, we already have a cashless society.
Yeah, because it's debit cards.
Yeah, people can call it what they can call it what they want.
Order,
But
you
if
can
the
buy
computers,
anything you want with this computer
That's
in your
right.
hand. Yeah, okay.
and worse than that, if the computers go down, you're not going to have a cash exchange in a store.
No,
It's not going to happen. Right?
No.
Because most of these stores are run by these credit card processing centers that are located in the capital of that state,
98%.
not necessarily in the, So anyway, we already had that. To move that to a bracelet, right? What is going to be a dream for people, because what they're not counting on, people are going to ask for that. Do you know why? We're about to have a meltdown in security.
And they're going to want something that was secures biometrically, so they
They're
don't
gonna pay
get
for it.
robbed all the time.
They're going to say, I don't want this. Think of it right now. People's home titles are being stolen. Their identity is stolen. Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Most of the folks out there, their
There's
identity is stolen.
7 different people.
There was a breakdown.
Mike,
there was a breakdown.
7 different people made Pastor Paul Begley Facebook pages using my 7 using my name, my picture.
Well, you got more than that.
I'm so
There's more than 7.
okay, Mike. Thanks.
You got a lot more than 2. You got more than 7.
See what I'm saying?
But you have to have security, right? There was a recent data breach, right? That more than, I think it was 219 million people were affected. So the chances of people ending up on the dark web is a sure thing, right? That makes the next 6 or 7 to 8 months is going to be a nightmare, right? It's happening to people who have nothing. One poor guy, he has one little computer. His identity was stolen. He's a veteran, right? He has minimal income. They stole his ID.
Yeah.
They robbed his title to his home. He was evicted from that home, right? He had to get out because his home was sold to somebody else. This is happening all over the USA. All over the USA.
So
the USA is a target for that.
People are going to beg for the biometric bracelet that secures them 100% because they can't deal with being robbed every other day.
That's right. Have you checked your device lately? Has anybody checked security on their phone lately? It is asking you to accept biometrics and get rid of your passwords.
I know.
As your authentication.
This happened to me. Lightning hit my microphone the other day. I was live on the air. Boom. Okay. It was during the earthquake. It took me about 9 minutes to get back on. People were still waiting. Okay. I got back online. Okay. Here's what happened. When I went to go to my after I got off the air that night, I went to check my emails. I couldn't get in my email. It said, "What is your name?" I typed it. "What is your password?" I put it in. It said, "Well, we're going to say, what is this? What's this email here? Give us the number of this email. We're going to send you a code." I said, "Okay." So I did that. I got the code. I gave them the code. It said, "Okay, where's your backup email? Your wife's backup email."
Yeah.
I said, "What for?" So I gave them that. Then said, "Wait till you get a code from her. Then you got to send it back." Mike, how many hoops do I got to jump through? What in the world's going on here? And then it asked me if I was a robot. And I almost went here and clicked this thing here what changes my voice that I can,
Well, let me give something to search for, Passballs, for everybody, right? There's a sequence of numbers that you press on your phone, 4 digits.
I am
4 digits.
I am not a robot. I am not a robot. You see what I'm saying, Mike? Go ahead.
Yeah, you ready? 4 digits you press on your cell phone. I want you to look this up, though. It's 4 digits. Once you press those 4 digits, it will tell you if anybody's listening on your device, if anything is open, if anything is transmitting. Then there are 4 other digits you can select to disable any access to your phone, right? Normally, people have everything open on their phone, and they don't even know it. They shut it down by way of the settings. That does not work. Now, there's another layer to security to every single phone. So do the other one to verify it, just shut it. In fact, there are about there are over 200 special codes. You never have to open up anybody's phone, that you can operate that phone from just pressing 4 digits at a time to control everything. And it's a call you make, 4 digit. It's a 4-digit
How
call.
do I get that? How do I get that 4 digit?
Look that up to see. Look, do this in your search bar or in your leisure. Look up the 4-digit code, right, to find out if security is enabled on your phone. It's like a 4-digit code that you call. So you're going to press like star. It'll be like star something 6 pound, and you'll press that push call. It will list everything open on your phone, and then do another search to find out the ones that close it. Yeah, just do that. It's on the internet, right? It's only 2 deviations, and I believe in the USA only 2
So
deviations.
I go on there and I say, hey, give me the 4-digit code that would that's a tech, or it's a
that will list. That will list. It'll list running devices on your cell phone, right? Or open ports or listening ports on your cell phone. It's a call. What is the 4-digit call that you can make to your phone to list all security parameters? What is what you want to do.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out what the sound is. Hang on.
You got a sound on there?
There's some kind of sound coming from somewhere. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, list the running. Go ahead, say that again. Running
security. Let me see something. I may have sent you an email on this one, so you want to go through all that.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, when I get another spot, I'll send you an email.
Okay.
I'll send you 2 numbers you call, and it will it'll show you, and then you can choose to disable any access to your phone.
Okay.
Again, most people have access to the phone, and it's going. You can shut all that down. You can't do it by settings, but you can do it by making a call.
Okay, I didn't know that. So if you
and that's public information. Okay. It's just not. It's
advertised.
just
it's public,
right.
but not advertised.
Right.
So you're going to send that to me too. I can help me out here, and I can get that done. Okay, I appreciate you doing that. I didn't know that. I mean, how would I know that? You're right, Mike. Are we? So in other words, biometrics is. There's no stopping this, is there? There's no stopping this.
People are going to want it. When they get hit in the pocket, when it really, because being hacked can upend your life. It can really ruin your life. You really can. Somebody steals your bank account, right? The bank is going to follow procedures. No matter what you do, that's what they're going to do. But keep in mind this bracelet. That's not the compromise. Your cell phone is not the compromise. The mark, I have my idea. I know this thing. In order to take the mark, you have to renounce all sovereignties. Right?
And you got to renounce Christ too, don't you? I mean,
that's it. That is our sovereignty, right?
Yes,
Christ.
it is. Yes, it is.
So there will be a time where people are going to have to vow. They're going to have to make another pledge.
Yeah.
To be a citizen of a brand new system.
Oh, move him up or down. Come on.
Place as we speak.
So it's good.
But the bracelet is not it.
Okay, so it's good. It's good to share this tonight. That folks, the bracelet is not the mark of the beast. All of these steps that they're putting out in front of us that we are walking down is still not the mark. When the mark of the beast comes, you have to deny Christ and swear your allegiance to the Antichrist or to the beast system. And there's no turning back. Am I right, Mike?
That's right. That's right. Because you have to become a citizen of this new place.
You got to be a global citizen. You got to be a one world citizen.
Yeah. That's right.
How far do you think we are, Mike, from that? How close?
Pastor, they have the stores set up. Remember last year I told you about all the Walmarts.
Yes,
they changed, and they're on a different computing system. Everything else is set up for it. VA is set up for it. Hospitals are turning into university hospitals. They're set up for it. So the cash system is set up for it, right? And we're going to be good to go. The only thing that gives me a moment to pause is this. Every time any president messes with the Federal Reserve, something has always happened. Anytime that's happened.
Boy. So in other words,
if you look historically, right, at anybody who has ever, because the Federal Reserve, just briefly, when we print money, it comes from the Federal Reserve, right?
Yes,
they do not print enough money to pay back the interest. So what does that tell you? We're always going to be in debt to the Federal Reserve.
Purposely being done.
Okay, there you go. So what a few presidents tried to do is to say, no, we're going to print the money, right?
Yeah.
That's what they said.
Quantum
as soon as they said that,
easing, they call it.
well, as soon as the government, because it's only been only 3 people that have been presidents who ever tried this, and all 3 died, right? So anytime somebody messes with the Federal Reserve, I'm telling you, something weird happens every single time. And it is, I mean, you can go check. It's funny, they come up with all these different things why presidents die, but all of them have that one thing in common.
They mess with
They told the Federal Reserve that they were going to print the government was going to print the money, thus they would not be in debt to the Federal Reserve. Now, a lot of people think, well, that's the federal government. You might want to look again. It's not governed by, it's separate. It's part of the federal government, but separated so it will never be influenced by politics. It's set up that way. But they never, ever print the interest money to pay them back. They never do that.
They would never.
So that keeps the country in debt to them.
Because the Federal Reserve is actually a private institution.
Mm-hmm.
And yet we think it's the,
that's right.
We think it's the government.
That's right.
So they'll never let us. We'll never balance the budget, and we'll never pay.
No,
it's never going to happen.
It's a big sham.
It's a sham.
Is what that is. That's a sham. We borrow money from a place who will never give us enough money to pay back the interest. So the debt piles up every time that happens.
Guaranteed.
So you've had presidents say, no, we're not doing this anymore, and they passed it, but they had it passed. And then the president, right before signing the bill, would die.
So basically, the debt ceiling, folks, will keep rising. They'll keep printing money, but they'll never print enough that can pay off the debt. They keep us in the debt. As long as they keep us in the debt, we're a slave to the system.
Well, you don't have to do nothing about it, Paul. You just collect the money, mate, like you're already doing.
The digital world, the digital way that cryptocurrency and all that, that platform is a debt-free platform, and the Federal Reserve does not want that. They're fighting that tooth and nail.
Are they going to do a hostile takeover on the cryptocurrency eventually?
Well, they can't. They can't do it with that. They can't even break through, all the layers of cryptocurrency. They can't do it. They're trying to stop the government from implementing a system just like cryptocurrency.
I see.
Because if the government does that, they cannot print a bunch of money and then not give us the interest or something like that. Anyway, that's going to cause a problem. So when the current president, who they call him the crypto president, right?
Yeah,
when he starts to get into that makes me nervous.
So you're saying when Trump trying to push hard to defeat the Federal Reserve could end up losing his life doing that?
The other presidents who have tried
have died.
They ended up the same way. So it needs prayer. And that's a real issue.
I appreciate you saying that. I think that puts every person here that should be praying for President Donald Trump, because he wants to defeat the debt. He hates it. And he's brilliant with the tariff thing. He's been negotiating. He's swinging cash toward America's way like never before. But he wants to take on that debt. And when he does, he's in dangerous ground, is what you're saying.
He doesn't like the backroom stuff. He doesn't like that.
He don't like that. He don't like secret societies. He don't like the backroom deals. He wants up front. He wants to save America. He's in dangerous ground. We got to pray for him and his families. Mike, this has been an amazing show. I mean, really, to be honest with you, this is one of the most, every week we say that these are one of the most enlightening shows, one of the most powerful shows, but it's because I think these Thursday nights is a great time for us to ask the questions, you to help us find some answers, and us go to the Word of God. It confirms it. And
okay, guys, I'm out. See you tomorrow. God bless.
Doing this on Thursday nights. I appreciate it greatly. I know the people.
Well, thank you, Pastor, for organizing. I heard